Kelli, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you a little bit today about you and your background and what you've done and your experience through PreSales Academy, even though it's been quite a few years. Um, Now, I'm curious, Kelli, can you, for those that don't know you, haven't seen you on LinkedIn, can you introduce yourself a bit and share a little bit about your career before joining PreSales Academy?
Absolutely. I'm Kelli Leeman. I was actually the very first teacher to graduate from PSA way back in 2021. I joined the company I'm with currently, is Sochi. Sochi was the one who decided they wanted to take a chance on this very green teacher turned sales engineer. My title is solutions engineer, and I've been with Sochi now for pushing 3 years. So I went through PSA as one of the very first people and the very first teacher and the very first cohort.
uh, Building a lot of bridges for many other folks to come and to follow you and your footsteps. And I just absolutely love your journey along the way. And I feel like I got a small part of it in the very beginning because I got to interview you. And I tell you, I really wanted to hire you. I just couldn't make it work at that particular period of time.
That's
So it's so
okay.
great to see. I'm curious, again, being that first teacher, kind of if I could say, trailblazing that path. What inspired you to pursue a career in pre-sales, and how did you discover PSA?
Yeah, good question. So the long story shortened real of is the fact that my husband was a solutions engineer before I ever was. And I always teased him and said, I really don't know what you do for a living. I'm glad you do it and I'm glad it fulfills you, but I really have no idea. I had a vague idea at the point at which PSA was a brand new offering. And he came to me and said, Hey, I know that you are ready for a transition out of teaching into a different career. We've tried this and this and this. What about if we combine these three areas that you were interested in before and we try solutions engineering? And there's this great boot camp of sorts that would train you up and kind of give you that special in that you would need to get a job, hopefully. And the economy was great and everything was looking very optimistic about hiring somebody like me. And so it was him who saw it on LinkedIn and said, let's give this a shot. And I said, yes, absolutely. Because at the point I was at, it was really a Titanic and floating door situation. Throw me anything and I'm crawling right on top of it. I was desperate. I needed something to change the way I felt about being in the workforce. And PSA really was the golden ticket or floating door, if you will, to give me that special status that kind of opened doors for me that otherwise would have been shut.
I love that. I love that story, and I love the fact that it wasn't just, hey, you were looking for anything, but you found pre-sales, and can I make the assumption you're not never going back?
I'm not going back. No, no, no. I am very, very, very satisfied being a solutions engineer because I mean it really isn't an enormous jump for me. I like technology in the first place, and my area of teaching was special education, and so really I was selling my services as a teacher and as a resource to people who were ordinarily like, why would I need this? Why would I want this? And so in a very small way and in obviously a very remote way, I was already solutions engineering in a school setting, saying, hey, I see you can't read very well. I'm sorry. That must really stink. What if we gave you this accommodation to help you be successful and not change you, but just help you be set up for success? You're already doing a lot of work. Let's make it easier for you. And so that really translated beautifully into solutions engineering, where we come in and we say, what you're doing right now, you're telling me isn't working. What if we gave you this solution that can alter your workload and hopefully make you happy doing it again?
I love that. And I love that you came in knowing, you had some of the foundations for success, the things that you can build on. But I'm curious, what are some of the maybe the skills or some of the knowledge that you gained from PSA that you find the most valuable in your current role?
I think the biggest thing is for me today would have been the terminology, learning how to speak this language, learning how to run a discovery meeting, for example, learning what the hallmarks of a really amazing demo are. And so for me, this looked a lot different in 2021, but the core values remain. You had guidance through coaching and advisors. You had your fellow cohort members double checking and saying, hey, I feel like you can do this better because of this, this, or this. The idea that I could bring my stupid questions to a meeting. For example, I asked at one point, what is GMB? And they're like, oh, Google my business. And now, of course, that's changed a little bit. But at the time, I was like, I don't know the most basic of things. And nobody looked down on me. Nobody said, hey, are you sure you're in the right place? In fact, they were like, of course you wouldn't know what that is. Let's help you out. So it was really helpful for me to have a safe space to learn, to experiment, to grow, and to really blossom into somebody who can speak this language.
And that's so important. And it, like, the language piece, if you don't have that, you're gonna get like lost in translation in a lot of different ways. I use that, but it is true. I mean, if you don't understand the terminology, if someone says like, hey, what did you learn on this disco? And you're like, what's disco? Is there
What
a
is that?
ball? Is what's happening? Versus, okay, like what questions do you know? Like what information do you know about that particular customer? I love that helps you so much
Mhm.
today. And I mean, I will say, even myself, terminology is still super important because sometimes you realize another customer, your customer, if you're having conversations with them, they have different terminology. And so understanding you just need to come together and you need to speak the same language is so important.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, I'm curious. Now, you were in the first cohort, so you had a lot of, you know, challenges in different ways when you were breaking into pre-sales. What were some of those challenges, and then how did you overcome them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And this is all going to come from the lens of an economy that was hiring so many people so fast. That changed, obviously, January-ish of 2023, where we saw a world that looked quite different from when I was being hired at Sochi a year prior. So my challenges are not today's seekers challenges, where many folks are looking for jobs and nobody is hiring somebody with 10 years experience, let alone somebody like me coming at a job with no experience, or even right now, right, with less than 3 years, I still look like a newbie. So this is a completely different world, and that's okay. The challenge for me was still proving that I was worth taking a chance on. Um, Making myself, and I've told countless people this at this point, making myself into a unicorn where they think, why wouldn't we hire her? She is a perfect fit for us because I brought this aspect of my personality, this aspect of my learning, this experience, this willingness to whatever it is to the table. And so I think finding that thing for me was less difficult than it is for people today. But I think it's still important because unless you can somehow put your resume on the top of the stack, that is a huge, huge challenge to get people to actually pay attention to you. And this goes for people with a lot of experience too. The other thing that was challenging for me is making them believe that I knew what I was talking about, right? I could talk the talk. Could I actually execute on a demo? And that was intimidating because I had never actually truly, honestly demoed before I got into an interview. It was very, very intimidating. And so taking my training from theory into practice was a bridge that was real shaky, right? It was like, I think I can do this. In my head and heart, I know I can do this, but imposter syndrome was screaming pretty loud because I was like, I've never truly sold anything to anybody, let alone myself, to these people at Sochi who want to hire me, and doing a task of a demo that is so very nuanced and unique to this area of employment. So that was a big challenge. I did okay, I think, because they wanted me to join their team, but it was very it was a challenge. I think those are the two things, making myself unique and then actually executing on the learning that I was secure in, but actually had to do, jumping off the diving board.
And I love that you bring up those two things because the folks that I see be successful today in this market, they understand those things as well. They know that they're challenges and they work to figure out how are they going to make those stand out. How are they going to stand out? What industry do they come from or what knowledge do they have? Maybe even like something them their hobbies even
Mhm.
that they're bringing to the table. They bring in their whole selves, their personality, their passions, and what makes them uniquely different than someone else who either has the experience, doesn't have the experience. Because it's not about where you work, it's about what are you bringing to the table. So I love that you called that out because I think that's so important.
Believe it or not, when I did my demo for the folks that I work for here at Sochi, I brought, it was the first thing, one of the first things that I was asked to do was to ask, they wanted to know about me because each of them had had conversations, but they wanted kind of a, who are you? And I put my hobbies on there, in addition to my adorable and late great grandfather who I just adored. So I said, here's me in a nutshell. And I had a number of other things. I said, here is my hobby. I love this. It makes me happy. It calms me down. It's great for mental health. And then here is one of the most important people to me. And this is my grandpa. And so even those little things that might seem to you or me as inconsequential, such as a beloved grandparent that you wouldn't necessarily bring to an interview, um, can make you stand apart in a way that nobody else would dare to do so.
Wonderful advice. I absolutely love that. Now, I guess in your current role, you've been doing it for 3 years, a little over 3 years now?
Yeah, no, a little under 3 years. I was hired in January. Actually, technically, they wanted me to start in December, which would have been lovely. I wanted to finish off the semester, kind of give it a clean break. So January of 22 is when I was hired. Yeah,
Almost there at that 3 year
so
mark.
close.
I'm curious, in what ways has the things that you learned at PSA helped you excel in your current role?
Yeah. I think the back to the demo and the terminology and the core learning that we had as students in the cohort, that has stuck with me. You know, the idea of get to the root of the problem. People don't come to sales calls just for fun, typically, especially not in this market where the freebies are few and far between, right? They're coming to you because there's a need, and your job is to uncover that need. And maybe they're there kind of grudgingly, and that's okay. That knowledge and that baseline understanding still sticks with me. It is it is important for me to approach people at a human level, not a sales level. I really strive for, like I did in the cohort, um, letting people understand that I am not, I don't have dollar signs in my eyes, right? I'm not a person who they need to be guarded around. I'm there to help. And so I felt that way in PSA. I feel that way today. Um, I think that's the biggest, one of the biggest things, that core understanding, that kindergarten, right? That those are important lessons that we learn at the very beginning of our education still stick with me. And I think if I had to pare it down to absolute bare bones, that's going to be it.
I mean, I don't think there's anything else to say there. That is such a perfect like has really ways to it. Anyway, I'm just gonna leave that there.
Love it.
No, I'm curious. You have done so much since graduation. Are there any moments that stand out of things that you're proud of?
Yeah. Great question. There's a number of them. Now, I'll give you a caveat. I come from an area of the country that we do not pat ourselves on the back. So this is deeply uncomfortable for me, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's all right. It's all right. I'm perfectly okay being uncomfortable. I'm just telling you, I don't usually do this. Um, in 2023, we had our sales kickoff, and I had been with the company for about 1 full year at that point, almost to the day. And, loved working with my colleagues and had done a lot of work on, the side, and really worked on rapport. And it was in a vertical that had been challenging for others. And I was kind of given the opportunity, hey, do you want to tackle this? And I was like, yes, put me in, coach. Right. And so I did, I got put in. And in January, I got awarded the Team Player of the Year, which was incredibly honoring. I was very, very thankful for it. It wasn't just me, it was a number of people who had helped me be a team player, right? It's not just me, it was many others. But that was extremely honoring, and I was extremely thankful that that was seen by somebody. It wasn't my intention to win any kind of award, but it was very gratifying. So I'm really proud of that. I think the other thing that's non-tangible but really gives me joy is the fact that I've been able to meet people at Sochi who are new to the company and coming on, and I get to be kind of they're called a culture buddy to folks. And I'm not sure how many I'm up to. I want to say it's in the double digits, somewhere in there. But like chatting with people and getting to know them, and hopefully making them feel comfortable at the company to the best of my ability, really that makes a huge difference too. And so whether they're long or short tenure at the company is beyond the point. I really want to help them feel successful at their first point of contact, and I've been able to do that many times. So I'm extremely proud of that, as well as being a kind of a coach and a mentor to a couple of folks on my team. Now, I'm not saying I'm the smartest on the team, far from it. There are vastly more intelligent people who I work alongside, but it's nice to have that mentorship both ways, because I learn from them and they hopefully learn a thing or two from me. And either way, it's a nice way of having a alliance in just person to person. So I'm extremely proud of those. I would say those three things. And yeah, it's just kind of a people thing for me.
I love that you bring up those things. I think we're very similar in the fact that sometimes it's the accomplishments, not necessarily of the revenue or the deal, which that feels good.
Yes,
But what
it's
feels
fleeting.
better is working with folks and having folks appreciate that, and the things that come from, like, hey, that team impact, that culture carrier, the mentorship, and seeing others learn and grow because you might have had a small little piece in
Yeah.
that.
And that's just it. The revenue, absolutely. There's a number of deals I can point to that I literally jump out of my seat and I do some air fists, right? And really, really proud, because it took, this many days, weeks, months, whatever, to get it across the line. Feels fantastic, but it's fleeting, because as soon as that customer is onboarded and they're ready to go, there's another one, right? And you're chasing the next revenue, and that's great too. But people stick around. People have feelings of thankfulness, and people are, they come back and they say, thank you so much. This was incredibly helpful. I really appreciate this, or this. Dollars don't do that. Dollars don't do that.
I could not agree more. Now, as someone who's kind of been that trailblazer, done this for years at this point, I'm curious, what would you tell someone transitioning into from another career into pre-sales? You've mentioned a couple times as far it was a different environment than you
Mhm.
than when you had. So what would advice would you give somebody today?
Yeah. Be gritty. Be gritty and be intentional. Um, People always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's true to a point. But don't be afraid of using both, because use your background, use your intelligence. If you're a smart person, capitalize on that. If you're a people person like I am, you know, I won't throw myself completely under a bus and say I'm not smart, but I love people. Use that. Use what you already know as a human being, and then in your job today, whether it's a stay-at-home parent or you are a cardiac surgeon, you have skills that can translate into this career. Um, it's not impossible. It's also not easy. It's You have to be humble. You have to be willing to do hard things. You have to be willing to change and be flexible. And if you can do those things in your job today, regardless of what it is, then you're going to be okay in pre-sales too. But be gritty and be intentional.
I love that. And I would say from what I've seen the students be successful who've gotten the roles, who've made that transition, that is 100% true. So thank you so much for that advice. Thank you so much for chatting a little bit about your background and what you've done. I mean, really, congratulations on everything that you've done up to this point. I cannot wait to continue to follow your journey. I know you're going to continue to do amazing things. So congratulations, Kelli. Also, thank you for being a part of the Pre-Sales Academy community, and happy birthday, Pre-Sales Academy.
Yay, number 3.